What's up, guys? Darkdally here, and today I want to give Ghost Recon Breakpoint an honest review, or at least the best I can. First, I want to give a huge thanks to Ubisoft for allowing me to, the opportunity to play the full release version of the game early and get the experience needed to properly judge the game. I also want to thank those there who listened to my concerns with the game, as well as yours, as I brought directly to many of the creators the biggest questions you guys as a community had with the game, and we'll get to that. One final shout out to Mike and Ben from Game Plan, as well as the 3 other creators that were there. Thanks, guys. You guys were all awesome. For real. Alright, so first off, what you're seeing here is all final release game footage. And as far as reviewing the game Ghost Recon Breakpoint, here's how we're going to do this. I suppose that first I should give a brief overview, as well as my own impressions of the game. Having around 50 or so hours of hands-on time with it, 16 of those hours of which were directly with the full release version that you are playing right now. So, full disclosure here, Ubisoft did allow me and a select few other creators direct time with the game ahead of release. And it was so that we could bring you guys pretty much exactly what we're doing right here, right now. Next, I'd like to compare Breakpoint to similar games and suggest the possibility of a genre shift that's happening within the franchise, and we'll talk about that here in a second. Now, of course, then I'll draw comparisons with previous games in the Ghost Recon franchise, for instance, Wildlands, you're right, obviously. And then we'll go over perceived pluses and minuses of the game, and lastly, an overall recommendation based on the kinds of games that you may like to play. Okay, so here we go, guys. All right, so Breakpoint is more than just a sequel to Ghost Recon Wildlands. Now, that's not to imply anything, for good or for ill, but we are dipping into something that's a bit more of a conglomeration of genres. Now, over the last 18 years, the Ghost Recon series has gone through a lot of changes. Yeah, Ghost Recon's been around for a long time, guys. And with the most recent previous release in the franchise, they kind of dipped into the open world sandbox type of game, combined with the fairly traditional squad-oriented combat tactics. What we have here with Ghost Recon Breakpoint is basically, I'll sum it up like this, it's basically an arcade-style third-person tactical shooter. Obviously made as the successor to Wildlands, but there is, as I implied before, a bit of a genre shift. Now, these things are bound to happen, and have happened several times throughout the life of just this franchise alone. The main thing I want to be here is fair, and so I'll say this. A move towards a more RPG-focused feel is comforting for me, myself. Now, and I'm not alone. I come from an RPG background. But it's, that's not going to agree with everyone. That said, we must judge it fairly on its merits and also its shortcomings, and try not to let our opinions sway the direction, of how we feel about the game. Let's just look at it, how it is. All right, so now I've seen comparisons here to many other games, and there's no need to go into that because we've already heard it, dude. But do remember a couple of things. The first of which is true, and may be hard for some to swallow, and that's that people are afraid of change. The other thing actually ties into this, and it's that maybe the reason some people don't want to see this franchise go the way that they perceive it's going is because they like the franchise so much. It's because it's so endeared to them. That said, I have fun with the game, but it's definitely not without its faults, which we will address here in a second. It definitely has its faults. Alright, so compared to Wildlands, we have a bit of a different experience here, but it's close enough, you see, that many Wildland players are wary, and to be honest, with good reason. We still have the open world, and it is undeniably more lush and beautiful than ever. The environment is rich, to be sure. The open world and familiarity of the controls, well, also, yeah, the role of Nomad in the game is what that draws obvious comparisons to Wildlands. But see, the thing is, this game is different. So, like, all these things draw these comparisons, but it's different. Okay, so again, it's my opinion, as I said before, a genre shift. That's what's happening here. Ghost Recon just kind of shifting a little bit, kind of a little bit of a 30-degree angle here. Now, here we have an obvious move towards a more RPG-oriented style system. Now, only you can decide if that's good or bad. Now, personally, I find it enjoyable. If you take any one thing away from this, take this with you. If it's not your thing, then it's not, But if you let yourself have fun with it, I don't know. If you let yourself have fun with it, maybe it is your thing. I don't know. I can't say. But it is a bit of a genre shift. I gotta say, I think the only reason this issue is even a thing is strictly because people were so incredibly enamored with Wildlands, and I don't think that's a bad thing. Yeah. So okay, so some of the minuses, and yes, by now I'm realizing this is not your average review, but that's okay. This is fun, all right? Okay, so here's some of the minuses. Here's a few criticisms here with the game. I've played quite a bit of this. So the chief criticism has to be that the game is online only. Yeah, I know. Everyone hates it, myself included. It's inconvenient and, as viewed by gamers, unnecessary. I've personally brought this concern to more than one of the creators personally, and I can't say exactly why they chose it, as no one wants it, like pretty much like ever. But I'm not a game developer, and I don't pretend to know how this stuff works behind the scenes, but it's there. All right, so the game is online only. Take it or leave it. It's if you devs are listening, I'm not sure why you went that way. Maybe there's some like developmental reason, but people really, no one wants it. No one wants it ever. We want to be able to choose to be online or not. All right. Okay, so I took many questions, that I fielded from the community to some of the people behind the game. I really did. I listened to everything you guys had to say, and even I took some of the questions even to the president of Ubisoft America himself, and I do believe that they really do listen to us. I mean, like, look what they did with Wildlands in 2 years. And in 2 years' time, look how much they transformed Wildlands. Look how much the community they listened to and transformed it. People will always find faults in everything, but they actually evolved that game quite a bit. Okay? But then you could say, why did it take them so long to do these things? What have they learned? Well, I'll say this. This game does at launch with a lot of things that Wildlands didn't even implement until year 2. So there's that. This game starts off with a lot of stuff. We already have 4 leveling systems off the bat. Like people are asking about ghost mode, tier mode, this and that. This game starts off, you have your character level, your gear level, your class level, and your battle rank. I mean, the game launches with a lot of stuff that Wildlands took quite a while to implement. It's because they're listening to the community, Now, aside from like the prestige and bragging rights of many of these, there's a minus here. Aside from basically bragging rights, pretty much is, from my experience, gear level is really all that matters. Class level, kind of a little bit, but it's still, to me, that was a bit prestige. I just wanted to hit level 10 sharpshooter just so I could. So I got to say that, yeah, gear level is kind of all that matters, really. That's kind of a minus. I mean, there's a lot of minuses here, guys. Like I told you this was going to be honest. So there was only a handful of us testing this game in its full version. And I do think we all agreed on one thing. And forgive me, guys, if I'm speaking out of turn, if you guys don't agree with me. There was only 4 of us there testing the game. There's too much menu switching. And again, forgive me if I'm speaking for you where I should not. But I do think we agreed on this. There's a lot of menu stuff. Every time you pick up a piece of gear, every time you want to dismantle a weapon, and so on. One of the testers there brought up the idea that so many other games, and this is true, like almost every other game, uses this ability. He says, why not just be able to mark items as trash, right? Put it all in the trash bin and just dismantle all in one go. And that sounded really reasonable to me because, yeah, the game gets a bit menu heavy when you're constantly swapping back and forth. So I will say, yeah, there's a lot of menu changing here, and to be honest, if they're gonna go in a more RPG-oriented route, which they are, obviously, spending so much time in the menus breaks that immersion, and it kind of works against the RPG element, you know what I'm saying? And I guess that's all I have to say about that, as Forrest Gump once said. So let's move on. Okay, so there are definitely things said and forecasted about the direction of, okay, yeah, we're going to go here. We got to go here a little bit. There are definitely things said and forecasted about the direction of microtransactions in this game, but I can only speak of what's in the game and what I've seen. We all know what direction that all games are going. I mean, for Christ's sake, I mean, people I know, their kids pay their parents money for dances in the Fortnite lobby while they're waiting to join other groups. I mean, it's just the way games are going. I'm not defending it. I'm just saying. You know what I mean? I'm just saying. Hear me out here. But speaking, again, just from what I've seen, it's pretty much the same as Wildlands. I don't see anything different happening with the microtransactions here, different from Wildlands. And there's been no indication from any of my interactions with the creators, developers, and other people with the game that anything is going to be different. It's going to be a matter of you can earn it or you can buy it. There were things you could buy in Wildlands. Sure, there were guns you could only buy and you couldn't get in game, but they weren't any better. There was never a pay to win. People keep saying, people love the catchphrase paywall. There really never was a paywall in Wildlands. Everything was, take it from someone who's tested every single weapon in the game and made hundreds of videos on it. Yeah. So that's my opinion there. Now, I like if everyone made their own decision on the game. I mean, after all, who am I to tell you what to like? Yeah, like for real, I can't tell you what to like, but I will say this. When I was asked at Ubisoft, and this was actually really significant, one of the guys at Ubisoft, he asked me, he said, what's the one thing you like most about the game, and what's the one thing you like the least about the game? And that actually made me think, and here's my response. This is what I'll say about Breakpoint. My response can be shortened like this. I like the immersion. Every weapon feels different and is different. And when you're in the mud, you feel like you're in the mud. And when you earn a piece of gear, you earned it. But what I didn't like, and this is a little complicated to explain, maybe, I'll try my best. What I didn't like, and what I told him was this, basically. It's one of those things which for me works against immersion in the game. Again, if you're going to go an RPG-oriented route, then you need to get into immersion. And I think one aspect of the game in particular really works against immersion. Aside from all the menu swapping, yeah, but this is what I told him when he asked me, well, what's the number one thing? Like, I had one thing to say I didn't like about the game. As odd as it may seem, remember in Wildlands, we had a set number of very distinct provinces, right? Well, we do here too in Aroa. But... and, just as many in the map as just as big. But there's a thing I'm going to kind of put out there. Okay, so remember how in Wildlands, you could check a waypoint and get a GPS route to drive there, right? On the map, on the mini-map, if you ran a map. Well, you can't do that here. Now, in a way, that's really more immersive. The map is, the map doesn't have the progressive zoom. It has more like a satellite feel to it. It only has like 4 levels of zoom, and there's no GPS routes. So you don't automatically get told where to drive. Like, it's not like you have, Google Maps in a car that you just stole from, some random sentinel. But the downside to that, but okay, I ramble. But the downside to that, and or whatever else may cause it, is that I found myself not using the roads much. Here's where I'm going with this, guys. I found myself not using the roads much, and this led to a lack of. I had that feeling in Wildlands, like when you go into Malka, you get a sign that says, "Bienvenidos a Malka," right? When you're in different provinces, everything felt different because most people in Wildlands, from my experience, well, I generally drove. A lot of people, I guess, did fly choppers, but I knew every province individually. Now, that said, there's every kind of biome imaginable here, and there's everything's the same. It's just that the roads are not as friendly here, and maybe that's more realistic, but something about it made it feel like it kind of blended together for me. I've totally gone off script here. I mean, not really. This kind of is a script. I just kind of freelanced it for a bit there. So there's that. For me, that kind of actually killed the immersion a bit. Like, yeah, there's swamps, there's snowy mountains and peaks and deserts, and it's all very far apart. It all feels very realistic, but something about it made it blend together, and it reminded me of Far Cry 4 a little bit. Now, differently. Far Cry 4, every place felt like the same because every place looked the same. Okay, it's not that way here because we have every different biome you can imagine. It's just that one aspect of that did feel the same, and that was that no matter where I went, I never really felt like I was in a unique place. Like, when I was playing Wildlands, I knew if I was in Okoro. I knew if I was in San Mateo or Romanzo or wherever. You know where you're at because it's a set thing. So they went for a real kind of like realism thing here. They even took on a Green Beret as the writer for the game, but thing is, and I think even he said this, don't quote me on this. He may not have said this, but someone said, what works in real life doesn't always make a good game. And that's very true. I mean, but that's the point I'm getting here. That's one point. It is a game. Games are what we do to escape real life. So here we have kind of a delicate balance. Now, how does this apply to Breakpoint? All right, well, Breakpoint does a good job of immersion in some places, but some places it overdoes the immersion. Some places it underdoes it, and I think I've described those. And some places it just misses the mark, and it really does. A lot of people have have expressed their their distaste with the bivouac system. Fair enough. I expressed my distaste with some intangible thing that just didn't make me feel like I was actually traveling between different provinces. There's a lot of few different things there. So there's a very delicate balance in both having immersion, but not being too realistic. If I want realism, I'll just walk out my door. But we're gamers. We don't walk outside. Am I right? So now I know this is not been your typical review, right? But this is the way I see things. I'm no one to tell you what to play. Who am I to tell you what to play? I'd rather raise questions, which hopefully help you decide on your own if you want to play the game or not. All right? I mean, that's kind of like the thing here. So if you were expecting a Wildlands 2, yeah, there's a bit more to this one. There's a ton of story. There's a ton of story in this game. And a lot of RPG-like elements. And, also, so many better... It also has a lot of better mechanics than Wildlands. Again, we're looking at a genre shift here. Just Ghost Recon is changing. Again, rewind back to 2001 in the first Ghost Recon game. Go play that and tell me it's anything like Wildlands. Things change, guys. I'm just saying things change. I'm not saying it's good or bad. I'm not defending the game. I'm not putting it down. I'm just saying things do change. Keep in mind that if you're on board with that, then I highly recommend the game. I come from a background of playing, open world and RPG games such as Skyrim and all the Elder Scrolls games, and Grand Theft Auto and World of Warcraft. I come from the background of playing tons of open world games. Now, if you come from a background more like COD or PUBG, this may not appeal. This probably won't appeal to you so much. The people who just want to run and gun, yeah, probably not so much, to be quite honest. I mean, that's the one thing I'm going to say in this review. If you come from a background of just wanting to play open games and have a sandbox in which you can create your own fun, and guys, they have, I don't know what it is, but I know they have a 2-year roadmap for this game, somewhere top secret in the Ubisoft headquarters. They do. They have a 2-year roadmap for this game. Just I've not seen it. I don't know. But they have a plan for this game. I mean, it's not even launch day yet. Launch day is not for a couple of hours as I'm recording this. So if you come from an open world kind of playing background and such, and you're open, I think you would really enjoy this game. Let yourself have fun with it, and you will enjoy it. Again, if you're more like games like Fortnite, or not to compare these together, I'm just saying quick firing moving games like Fortnite, COD, PUBG, EFT, things like that, things where you move around really fast, maybe not so much. That said, PvP is available at launch, and the PvP is way better. We'll have a separate video on that, and that's kind of what I was getting to next. This is one video in a playlist of many videos where I go over features of the game individually. I just kind of wanted to make a general review video of the game here. And you can check in the description below and maybe watch some of the other videos you want to see, that describe specific topics that I kind of touched on. But in the end, here's the end of the review, guys. In the end, it's really up to you if you'd like the game. I hope I brought you some useful information today. For real, but only you can decide if you want to play it. It's a new direction for the Ghost Recon series, but the Ghost Recon series has hit a couple new directions. And now we're here. Things change, and you know what, guys? I play it, and I have fun with it. And so do my friends. We're really looking forward to playing with it. And, I hope to see you guys there. Again, as of right now, it's only a couple hours from launch. I hope to see you guys at Erewhon in the morning. All right. Guys, thanks so much for watching. I'm Darkdally. Check out the other vids. Maybe help you make your own decision on whether or not you want to play the game. I'll catch you guys next time.